Well, thank you, Eric, for spending your time today to discuss your innovative business model. Can you start by providing a brief background of yourself?
Certainly. I've got 24 years of experience in the industry. I started with a small U.S. customs broker called John V. Carr at the referral of a school chum of mine. He was a drummer in a band. I managed the band's affairs, and when his father was looking for somebody to take on as an apprentice with a good business acumen, my drummer friend recommended me, and that was my entry into the market, believe it or not. So from John V. Carr, I went to Fritz Starber. Fritz Starber was acquired by UPS-SCS, and from UPS-SCS, I was recruited to manage the regional sales team for Schenker of Canada in Eastern Canada. About 4 years ago, I decided to launch MyTLA, as in My Transport, which is on logistics. Not unlike a real estate agency or a recruiting agency or a talent agency, based on the customer's requirements, I'll scour the industry for the best service provider and support the rate negotiations and service solutions and implementation.
So, how is it different? How is your business model different?
Well, I think it's different in our industry. As you know, there exist commission salespeople for sure, and there exist consultants, and there exists 3PLs and forwarders and brokers, but the relationship tends to be more or less, the word I'm looking for, more or less dedicated or exclusive. MyTLA's business model is to bring shippers and service providers together based on cost, core competency, and corporate culture. And by that nature, or in that context, we are not limited with what service provider we'll solicit based on cost, core competency, and corporate culture.
And can you talk about a little bit more about why is your business model important?
I think it's important because I've seen it time and time again, and I'm sure my fellow sales, marketing, or even operations people in the industry recognize that there's a lot of shippers that are misaligned with their service providers in the industry. For example, a small, medium-sized company might not have the leverage or buying power to use the services of a large forwarder integrator like a UPS or a FedEx. At the same time, there are hundreds of service providers to whom a crumb to UPS would be a feast to them. I've got here a list in front of me, a publication from Canadian Transportation Logistics magazine listing 600 or 700 service providers in Canada alone, be they brokers, forwarders, carriers. And I promise you that if you call any one of them and ask them if they can do your imports from China, your distribution from Canada to within North America, and your imports from Mexico, regardless of the vertical market the shipper's in, the service provider will respond, yes, we can do that, and they'll proceed to build some sort of solution. Meanwhile, I maintain that every one of these service providers has that one thing that they do better than anybody else in the industry. Perhaps it's born out of a legacy of importing automotive parts from Detroit into Toronto, or maybe it's importing garments from India into Canada for distribution throughout North America, or maybe it's Mexico into the US. The point being that each one of these companies has something that they have developed as a core competency born out of a legacy. And my objective is to find the right fit between the service provider and the shipper. The service provider at the same time is very encouraged by my efforts because they don't pay me a salary, they don't pay me benefits, they don't pay for my car allowance or my travel. But should I introduce them to the right client, they pay me a commission based on the money that they receive from the client.
Oh, and who can benefit the most?
I think both sides benefit. The shipper benefits because they've got a very transparent and a true consultative sales approach, where based on their requirements, we'll turn around and we'll find the right service provider for them. At the same time, the service provider benefits because we're introducing them to a client who's perfectly fit for their services based on their price points, their core competency, and their corporate culture. So oftentimes I've seen sales and marketing people or a customer is brought on or a shipper is brought on to a given service provider, and at the end of the day, the service is just not what that service provider is meant to be providing. And invariably it ends up in a lack of service and conflict between sales, operations, and the service provider and the shipper.
Do you have any final recommendations?
Well, I'd encourage my fellow sales and marketing brethren in the industry all over the world to consider this new model. I suggest that if you're in the industry and you know of a given shipper and that you know that there's a service provider in the industry for whom there's a perfect fit, then by employing the MyTLA model, there's a way that you can make money and develop a business for yourself. I use the term agency by design. My model isn't to develop just one segment of business just for me alone. My hope someday is to partner and network with similar like-minded individuals who have their own shippers and their own contracts with their own service providers. And at that point that we can start cross-referencing, where I'm introducing one agent to a Canadian customs broker and freight forwarder in Canada, and I'm leveraging their contracts for services into Asia or Europe or triangular. Well, then we've really begun to change the way the market procures transportation and logistics services.
And thank you, Eric, for sharing your views and the information about your business model.
My pleasure. And in particular, if you have some viewers who are non-resident importers looking to import and distribute within North America or import into North America, in particular Canada, please contact me or check out my website at mytla.com.
Thank you.